I'm going to show you how 7 of my friends paid nothing or next to nothing to go on a cruise vacation in the last year, and also how and why I've been offered many free cruises in that same period too. Now, some of these will not work for you. They might one day, but some, once you know the little tricks, will work for you. But I can guarantee that the last one you absolutely will be able to do for sure. If you're new here, welcome aboard. I'm Gary Bembridge, and I make it fun and easy to discover, plan, and enjoy incredible cruise vacations, including a couple of free ones, hopefully too. Many people assume that I cruise for free all the time because of my Tips for Travelers channel. Now, it is true that if you're a travel or cruise blogger, vlogger, or someone with a big social media following, or a journalist, you could sometimes go cruising for free in return for coverage of the line. Now, in the last year, because of the size of my channel, I've been offered 11 free cruises. However, I've actually turned all of them down, and always do, because I prefer to be independent. I like to decide where and when I cruise, on which line and cabin I go. So I pay for all of my cruises from the ad revenue from people like you do, watching my YouTube channel, listening to my podcast. Now, I want to stress though, not as many cruise bloggers or vloggers are invited, nor do they go as often as people seem to think. Now, I've counted at least 120 YouTube cruise channels, and a handful at best are getting asked to go on cruises. Now, importantly, you don't always have to be a huge channel to be asked either. And if you are in a very specific niche, like a family, food, or lifestyle, that will really appeal to cruise lines, because they're increasingly trying to attract people who have never been on a cruise before. So that could be very appealing. Now, I want to give you an example of a small channel being invited on a cruise. Recently, I've been following a channel run by someone I know, which is called Cruising with Matthew. And he's been on a Fred Olsen cruise, looking at some of their cruises and ships gathering together. Now, his channel has fewer than 10,000 subscribers, but his audience clearly is ideal for the line. Now, if you ever get to go on a cruise for free like Matthew, please do what he did. He followed the guidelines from the UK's Advertising Standards Authority in the UK. They require all posts to be flagged with the word ad when being gifted as a trip, so the audience like you knows when people are getting free trips. But if this way of getting a free cruise doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to many of you, you will be delighted to hear that something else that you're already doing could. Now, if you work in anything connected with the travel industry, you could unlock free or heavily discounted cruises. First of all, I've seen my travel agent, Sarah Bolton. She's asked to go on what's known as FAMs, familiarization trips. Now, cruise lines invite travel agents to go and experience ships quite often, especially new ones, and they get them to go on different itineraries, so of course they can sell them better to you and I. Now, she's done quite a few. In fact, at the time of recording this, she's about to join one of the most ultra-luxurious lines you can imagine to sail through the Panama Canal. So these things do happen if you're a travel agent. Last year, a seaborne cruise that I booked around the Greek islands, on boarding, I found there were 100 travel agents invited on that cruise. And it was actually on that cruise that I discovered another trick, that if you work in anything related to travel, you could very likely go cruising for significantly less than everybody else on that cruise. So my friend Simon, he's an ex-British Airways cabin crew. He was actually on the same trip, but I discovered he'd paid dramatically less than I had using what's known as interline fares. Now, these are reduced rates that the cruise lines offer on many sailings. Now, they used to only be available to airline industry employees, but they now have been expanded to almost anyone who works within travel. Now, there are agencies selling these interline fares, and looking at some, they are also making them available to employees of like tourist boards, hotel companies, car companies, and importantly, quite a few of them also allow immediate family members working in travel to access them as well too. So if you or members of your family work in anything travel related, look at interline fare agencies to see if you qualify. For example, there's a couple in the United States that I've come across, interlinetravel.com, abc.com, myinterline.com. In the UK, there's a very well-known agency called touchdown.co.uk. But if you or your family's job can't unlock free or next to nothing cruises, maybe one of your vices or your guilty pleasures can. So Jen, who's a follower of the channel I've got to know, certainly has. She gets offered and goes on multiple cruises a year across several different cruise lines by simply gambling in the onboard casino. Now, she explained to me how this can be done without gambling anything close to the amounts that I had assumed that you would have to gamble, loads and loads. She's shown that's not true. Now, I've explained how to do this in a video I've done about cruise ship casinos, but probably even easier, I've got an article on my Tips for Travelers blog that was written with the help of Jen that explains in detail how to do this across the major cruise lines. So take a look at that particular post to find out more. And I will say, since doing that post and being aware of it, I've met so many cruisers who get free cruises this way. And for example, even when checking in for my recent Norwegian Viva Mediterranean cruise, there was actually a dedicated line for people going on the cruise who'd got free cruises from their gambling. I also found by joining MGM Rewards when I was last in Las Vegas that gambling there can also unlock free or discounted cruises. At some status levels of that program and the equivalent Caesars Rewards program, does actually qualify people, gamblers in Las Vegas, to get free cruises. But now, of course, that won't apply to loads of you. So let me talk about a more practical and easier way for you to get free or comped cruises. Some cruise loyalty programs will give you a free cruise, though not all. So choose which line you decide to be loyal with. Well, I have certainly did not. The highest loyalty level I have on all of the cruise lines that I've sailed on is Cunard. They do not give a free cruise, even at Diamond, which is the highest level that I've managed to hit with that cruise line. So which do? Well, at the time of making this, Royal Caribbean's Crown and Anchor Society, they give you a 7-night cruise to the Caribbean in a balcony cabin once you get to their top tier. Norwegian Cruise Line's Latitudes Rewards at their highest tier also has a free 7-night cruise in a balcony cabin. But for them, it's any destination as long as it's not over Christmas and at New Year time. Celebrity Cruises top tier gets a 7-night Bermuda or Caribbean cruise, also in a balcony cabin. There are many others, like say Holland America, they only give their 5-star Mariner level a free cruise fare for kids or extra guests staying in the cabin on selected sailings. Some of the ultra luxury cruise lines, they also have free nights and cruises. So the key is to check the program and maybe choose a line when you start on your cruising journey that will eventually give you a freebie. But of course, if you don't cruise a lot to build status fast enough, there is another way that you can get a free cruise. And this one is just to spend on a cruise line linked credit card. Though unfortunately, these do seem to be available mostly for United States based cruises. Now, I've found at least 7 different cruise line credit cards. And by using it simply for your day-to-day spending, you can build up points that then get converted into credits for upgrades or even free cruises. Many of them, importantly, will give sign-on bonuses. So for example, on that Norwegian Viva cruise that I mentioned earlier, they were actively promoting their Norwegian Cruise Line World MasterCard, and they were given 20,000 points as a bonus if you spent at least $1,000 within the first 90 days of having the card. So that would be $200 off a cruise because it's roughly 1 cent per point. I've also found cards for Carnival, Holland America, Princess Cruises, Royal Caribbean, Celebrity Cruises, and Disney. And the last one I discovered when talking about this, that a friend of mine, John, actually uses this to help fund his Disney cruises. However, if you don't like that idea, I have another one, because your hobby, your talent, your career, or your skill could again find you free or heavily discounted cruises. 3 friends of mine have done this, all by being part of the Cruise Line Daily program. So first of all, my friend Chris Frame, he's shown that you can do this by becoming a guest speaker. Now, he's turned his hobby, his knowledge of all things maritime into talks that he does on cruise lines like Cunard, Pinot Cruises. The lines will fly into the ship from his home in Australia. He'll give a couple of talks, usually 1 per sea day, and most lines also let him bring his wife or a +1. So if you know anything about anything and can talk about it, this could be a route for you. I've met people talking about destinations, history, cases they investigated as police officers, pilots, architects, theatre producers, all giving talks on ships in return for a free cruise. There are quite a few agencies and online sites that specialize in matching cruise speakers with cruise lines. So I've come across those like cruiseshipspeakers.com, which is part of Peel Talent, who also provide entertainers. And there's many, many others if you just kind of Google and search for that. Now, you don't get paid because the payment is the cruise. You often have to cover some costs like drinks, excursions, that kind of stuff as well, but you fundamentally get a free cruise. The next route that another friend of mine has done, he's also called Chris, by the way, Chris T. He uses this as a way of getting free cruises, and he does it by running artwork and craft classes, mostly on Cunard. He did most of the recent World Cruise doing this. I've also met people, of course, teaching and running things like bridge classes. David, who I've been following for many years on Facebook, upon retiring, he developed a series of tech classes that he now runs on ships on things like how to use FaceTime, edit photographs, make short videos on your mobile phone. So if you have any of the skills or knowledge like Chris Frame, Chris T, or David, and you can teach and talk about it, you could be pitching for free cruises, basically, to go and talk and work on cruise lines. Now, one other but fast diminishing free cruise opportunity is if you love ballroom dancing. This is by becoming a gentleman host to dance with solo lady travelers on cruise lines like Cunard and Saga. I've interviewed a couple of guest gentleman hosts across the years, and again, it's a similar setup where they get free cruises in return for a few hours dancing each night. But if all of this is still not something that works for you, I'm pretty sure that the next one will. But before I talk about that, I just wanted to let you know that I do offer patrons at patreon.com to travelers and YouTube memberships, where I give lots of behind the scenes content from my trips, the channel, ebook downloads, and lots of bonus content. If that's of interest, take a look at that. But let's get back onto that next tip around free cruises. When I started preparing this, I realized that my feed, both on Instagram and Facebook, had loads of posts with opportunities to win free cruises. There was about at least 5 different travel agencies and cruise lines in 1 week alone. Now, these online travel agencies are all trying to get you and I to sign up to their mailing list so they can pitch selling cruises to us. And I'm seeing more and more of these giveaways appearing. So if you like and comment on cruising content on the social media, what you'll find is the algorithms will start showing you these ads for a free cruise draw. I suspect that's how it works. So if you interact with cruise content, you're probably going to get shown these. Onboard cruise ships, there are, of course, opportunities as well. So on that same Norwegian Viva cruise that I was talking about, they had a deal or no deal show that the top prize was a free cruise. Also, their bingo had a free cruise as a prize. But of course, once you get into competitions, the odds are not that great, but it's worth a try because somebody must win and they cost nothing to enter. There are, though, a number of scams around where it appears that you can get a free cruise, including one that caught out one of my best friends, Helen, when we were in Miami together recently. So join me in this video to find out what it was and how you can avoid getting scammed when looking for a free cruise. See you over there.